Welcome back. Welcome back. This is Aaron the Addisons on Urban Family Talk. We appreciate you listening. I'm Miki.
And I'm Will.
People's entrepreneur Courtney Sargent also on tap this morning.
Good morning.
Holding it down at our headquarters while we broadcast live and direct from the Music City in Nashville. Our guest right now.
Yeah.
We had the opportunity to have lunch with Mr. Henry Flowers the Fourth.
The fourth? I didn't know that.
The fourth.
Oh,
The
wow.
fourth.
Oh,
like
wow.
Okay? The Fourth.
what I'm talking
all
about.
right? Just in case the first three didn't get it right,
Mm-hmm.
here is number 4 to right all wrongs. Okay?
I receive all of that. Thank you.
Oh my goodness,
That
no
is
man.
beautiful.
We had such a great lunch the other day with Henry, and just talking over the issues and talking about what's happening in culture,
Yeah.
especially as it pertains to the pro-life movement. And so, man, we just thought, you know what? I know it's going to be Friday, but man, we wanted to get him on, wanted to talk with him about some of the things we talked about around a Reuben. You know, that sandwich was hitting, but the conversation was better.
Yeah.
It was much, much better. So Henry, let me just let our audience know. So you are the director of a ministry called Protecting Black Life, which is an outreach of Life Issues Institute. Let's talk about sort of the objective, and I'm just trying to really find a way to set you up to get into your passion, because I know that once we turn it over, people are going to be as passionate
Yeah. Yeah, come on.
about protecting Black life as you are. So let's talk about the mission and the scope of that ministry.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here and to be a part of protecting Black life. And very simply, the goal of protecting Black life is to take the pro-life conversation into the Black community, and to be able to have conversations with my Black brothers and sisters and let us know that pro-life issues are not a white Republican issue. It's a moral issue. And it is a conversation that if we have this conversation in a diplomatic, reasonable way, we can open our eyes to the fire that is burning in the Black community and is endangering us as a race of people.
Let's talk about some of the encounters that you've had. That's, you know, some of the compelling stories. You know, when you talk about taking people from point A to point B, you know, the fact that we even have to say this is not a white Republican issue, you know, and the fact that we have to point to the overwhelming numbers of Black babies who are aborted, who are murdered, you know, and let's talk about the hypocrisy of even right now, while we're out chanting, you know, Black Lives Matter, and everybody's looking for a cause to kind of rally around, this one is largely overlooked. What are some of the conversations you're having, and what's the impact that you're seeing from that?
That's a great question. And one of the things that I always like to clear up immediately is that there's no connection between protecting Black life, the organization, and the Black Lives Matter movement. I believe the Black Lives Matter movement does some great things. There are some things that that movement has done that I am adamantly opposed to.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure that there's a distinction there, because when it comes to protecting Black life, my goal is to shine the light on two numbers for my Black brothers and sisters.
Come on with it.
Two numbers that will cause us to, if we take a look at those two numbers, you have to sit back and wonder what those numbers mean, especially here in Black History Month. So let me share those numbers with you. There's a number of 1.9, and there's another number of 2.1. And these numbers are adamantly opposed to each other. So 2.1 is the birth rate that is necessary to replace the existing society. And these numbers are according to the 2006 United States Census. So 2.1 is what it takes to replace the existing society. Blacks have a birth rate of 1.9 in America.
Now, let's pause for a second, because it's very easy to kind of get caught up in the conversation and your brain trails off and you hear numbers and facts and stuff, and so you check out for a second. I need us to restate that, because I don't want people to miss it, because when we were talking about that over lunch, that's one of those neck-snapping figures. Do you understand what I'm saying? That if you really understand it, because again, and I understand, and it's so important for us to make the distinction, okay? Even though you have people out here who are marching, talking about we matter, stop killing us. The hypocrisy. You understand what I'm saying? This organization would ignore the pro-life movement and would ignore the genocide that's happening in the black community from this angle, right? So those two numbers, again, please help our listeners understand how critical that is.
So 1.9 is the birth rate of the black community.
Right.
Thank you. And 2.1 is the birth rate that it takes to replace the existing society. And these are not my numbers or any numbers from any politician or anything like that. These are not the numbers from the United States Census in 2006. And so what that means is that if we continue on the path that we're on, we not only talking about Black History Month, listen, it's possible that blacks will be history.
Man. You know, I don't understand how that's not sobering for people.
I don't think people get that connection of those numbers. You know, I don't think people can really visualize, wow, that means that we're going to be extinct. You know, if we keep going on this rate.
Right.
You know.
And Will, that is the exact response that I get. Two sentences. The first sentence is usually one word, and it's usually wow.
Yeah.
The second sentence that I hear from pastors and law enforcement and teachers and business leaders, the second sentence is always, we had no idea.
Right.
And so what does this mean? What it means is that there is a problem that is happening in our community that we need to pay attention to.
Right.
And the abortion issue has been so politicized.
Yeah.
But we need to understand, especially as blacks, that just because something has been politicized does not mean it is no longer moral. See, it's a moral issue.
That's right.
It has been politicized, but it is still a moral issue.
Right.
And our birth rate is at 1.9 because the fact is the most dangerous place to be black in America is not the streets of Detroit, which I grew up on. It's not a street corner in New York. It is not in a gang. The most dangerous place in America is to be in the womb of a black woman.
Man, you know, that should alarm us.
Yeah.
That should, you know, because, and then here is the thing, and if we can really just kind of wrap our brains around this, you know, and we keep it 100 on this show. Like, we don't, you know, we're not sugarcoating anything. We're giving the raw data, and we're looking at it even with the anecdotal evidence and all of that stuff. But, you know, some of the conversation that you hear, Henry, and I'm sure in the work that you do, you hear this a lot. You got all these white people trying to infringe or to push their issues on black people. But really, if you kind of boil that down and look at it, you got a lot of white people marching to protect black life.
That's right.
It's the opposite of what's painted in media. It's the opposite of what we see. If you look at the numbers and you look at the disproportionality when you talk about the rates at which black women are killing black men and black women in the womb, it's astounding. It's overwhelming. So my question is, how do we begin to paint that picture? Talk about some of the conversations that you're having one-on-one, face-to-face level, and when you begin to see it click. You know, what are some of those red lights that begin to go off?
I think one of the first conversations that I really want to have is one that surrounds the lives of our young people. Because no matter where you fall on the political spectrum, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, whether you're raised in the South or raised in the North, every one of us has a heart for our young people, and they want our young people to do better. And so with all of the legislation that is happening concerning trying to end abortion in America and the whole battle, pro-choice, pro-life, pro-abortion, and all these kinds of conversations, there needs to be more effort done on the prevention side to where we grab a hold of our young people and we help our young men to become better men. and we help our young girls to live beyond their sexuality and understand their absolute value and the things that they were able to bring to this planet, and to begin to work on that vision and that hope even as early as 12 or 13 years old. These young people can grab a hold of these things, and so when they get invited into the back room to have sex, they say, no thank you, I got plans for greatness.
We have a question here from our Churban, right? And Chris is listening to us in Pensacola, down in Florida.
Chris.
Has a question, just to get some clarity. I think it's a great question. He said that 1.9 number, is that the rate of reproduction in the black community taking into account abortion, looking at the amount of babies that we're killing, or is that just the normal reproduction that's happening in the black community?
That's a great question. And so this person obviously has an analytical mind. And so what is it that causes our birth rate to be at 1.9?
Yes, yes.
Okay? Well, then you have to look at what's happening with the black woman. And so here's another number. And I always encourage people to certainly research this yourself, because facts don't lie.
That's right.
Now, I can lie with facts. I can do it as a man, but the facts don't lie.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
So here's a fact. The black woman represents 13% of society.
Right.
Yet, since 1973, Roe v. Wade, Doe versus Bolton, the decision that allowed abortion to be legal in America, and Doe versus Bolton is a conversation that we don't have often. That conversation opened up the loophole, talking about the woman's health, and that health loophole is huge. I could drive a truck through it. That bus right there, I can drive that bus through it.
Wow.
So here it says her financial health, her mental health,
Yeah.
her career health, all of those things are involved.
Emotional. I just don't want to have this baby.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so what that has done is that allowed the black woman, who represents only 13% of society, that allowed her to be responsible for, get this, 33% of the abortions in this country.
Wow.
Overall, people. Now, I want you to understand, because, see, what your brain wants to do is to say 33% of black women. No, but this is a question of disproportionality. We are talking about being, as black women, 13% of the population, but making up overall, that's across cultural lines, right? 33% of the abortions. Now, you think about that. That is an astounding number. We're talking 16 million black babies aborted since Roe. 16 million. You think of what the population could be. That is absolutely astounding.
Absolutely. Because I was born in 1973.
Well, you count yourself blessed, right?
Absolutely.
You made it.
Because I'm blessed, because in October of 1972, my mother was in her room with her older sister trying to perform an at-home abortion procedure.
Wow.
She was trying to abort me, not because she wanted to kill her child, but because she was in a situation where it was just overwhelming, and she thought that was the best thing to do. And so what happened is, obviously the procedure didn't work, because I was ordained to be here today talking to you about this issue.
Right.
Come on.
But January, when those things were made legal in America, it opened up the floodgates.
Wow.
And there should be more than 50 million 42-year-old people in this country. Because since 1973, Roe v. Wade, there have been more than 50 million abortions in America. There should be 50 million more 42-year-old people in this country.
You're talking, listen, you're talking engineers, man.
Wow.
You're talking pastors.
Yes.
You're talking cures
teachers.
for diseases.
You know, you're talking innovators.
You don't know.
All of this potential snuffed out
Man.
under the guise of choice. Man, if you're just joining us, you're listening to the voice of Henry Flowers, who is the director of Protecting Black Life. It's an outreach ministry of Life Issues Institute, and we are talking about protecting black life and why that's so important. When we get back, I'm going to talk about, again, you know, why is it important to make the distinction? You know, of course, we understand we want to protect all life, but why is it so important that we paint a picture of the epidemic that's happening in the black community? And then also, if you don't mind, Henry, I'd like to talk about your own personal testimony as well, why this issue is near and dear to your heart. All right, this is Erin the Addisons on Urban Family Talk. You can meet us in the Churban. That's our online chat forum in my Lonnie voice. urbanfamilytalk.com, urbanfamilytalk.com. Communicate with us in real time. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, more with our brother, Henry Flowers the Fourth. Make sure you stay close. Our guest this morning, as we are broadcasting live and direct from the Music City, Nashville, Tennessee, at the National Religious Broadcasters Convention. What an exciting time it has been. We had the opportunity to have lunch with Henry Flowers IV, who is the director of Protecting Black Life, which is an outreach of Life Issues Institute. Had lunch with him, and it was just amazing, the conversation and just really getting the information out there and why it's so crucial. One of the things that you said, Henry, a couple days ago that I found really compelling was sort of the personal angle of your mission, you know, and the revelation that you had, you know, I guess even a portion of the driving force behind what you do. Can we talk about that?
Sure. My life for the past 22 years has been a canvas that was being painted on by God. And when I looked at the lines that I thought he should stay within, he was painting outside the lines in all kind of different colors and everything, and I thought it was horrible. I had no idea what was going on. But when I stood back and I looked at that painting from a distance, I saw that he had created a masterpiece. So being an abortion survivor, when my mother really was in a terrible situation, being 17 years old, having 2 girls already, already divorced. Family had kicked her out. We're banishing you. You get out of here. She's a little country girl, Belleville, about 30 miles southwest of Detroit. Hey, we're going to send you to Detroit. And so you can get on those buses and you can be able to get about the rest of your life because you done messed everything up. And, you know, she pleaded not to be sent to Detroit. It's a country girl. Sent her to Detroit. Are you kidding me? And so her life was topsy-turvy in one moment. And so she thought the best thing to do was to try to perform an at-home abortion procedure, which should have worked because her sister was helping her, and her sister was a nurse, and she had, her sister had used this procedure on herself twice.
Oh, man.
Wow.
Yeah.
Safely. So, in quotes, safely, because certainly the child paid its life for that procedure. But that procedure didn't work because that was another strand in my life that was going one direction. And all of these other strands in my life that were going so many different directions. And when I found myself 20 years old in the Navy and living for myself, I dropped my girlfriend off at the abortion clinic.
Wow.
And that was a weight that I carried like a ton of bricks on my back.
Did you, okay, so at that time, and because, you know, a lot of times when we hear about men and women being post-abortive, you know, we don't talk a lot about the men who are post-abortive, but both men and women being post-abortive, it's usually down the line that sort of these things will crop up and come back and be like, I guess, recognized as the emotional damage and taking the emotional toil on your life. In that moment, when you dropped your girlfriend off at an abortion clinic, did you have an understanding, a deep understanding of what you were doing, or would it be sometime later that this would kind of come rushing back to you and you would have to walk through this process of healing?
Great question. On that day, the only thing that I understood was I was the most important thing in my life.
Ooh, wow. Wait, wow. Okay. All right.
I was living for myself.
Man.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, I dropped her off and I stayed in the car. And she walked into that dark brown brick building with tinted windows, and she was in and out. It seemed like 15 minutes. But one of the things that I'll never forget while I was in that car waiting for her to return, there was a white lady, older white lady with these pale white slender arms, and I could remember still seeing the blue varicose veins as she held up this white sign, and the silver gray hair down to her shoulders. She kept looking at me.
Oh, wow.
And I'm from Detroit, and I wasn't used to folks staring at me like that. You know, you don't do that in Detroit. You don't stare at people. And this was Newport, Rhode Island. And so she was staring at me, and I finally broke away from her gaze, and I looked at her sign, and I'll never forget those words. Those words haunted me for the next 20 years.
Wow.
Those words on that sign said, "Everyone who chooses abortion had a mother who chose life."
Wow.
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 And for the next 20 years, I carried the weight that I call lost fatherhood. regret, insecurity, and all of these things that plagued my life. And quite frankly, there was not a day that went by that I did not think about that day. And these are things that aren't talked about. These are conversations
really
that
not.
we don't have
Wow.
because most of the issue surrounding abortion, we believe, is about women's rights and women's health and women's choice. But if we can open that conversation up to a broader level, we've got to understand what it means to a father and lost fatherhood, and I am a living witness.
You know, I think one of the biggest problems is a lack of education, you know, on these topics. Like I said, I have family members that would tell me flat out, oh, nothing's wrong with Planned Parenthood. They, you know, do great things for women, you know, and that's some of the things you hear. How can we help the average person, or what tools can we give to them that they can just learn more about this issue and not just be duped by, you know, talking points and all that kind of stuff?
I think we have to have a conversation with people that helps them understand the why. It doesn't matter whether you're buying a car or buying a house or buying a dress. If the young lady doesn't understand the why she needs to know this, why it's important, why does she need to be active, if we don't do a better job talking to our pastors and our community leaders and law enforcement and our teachers, if we don't do a better job talking to them about the why and give them the buy-in, because once someone buys in to your philosophy and your ideal, then they're in, and you have all of them. And so the buy-in comes from answering the why. Why is this important? Why is this something we should do? And I believe that buy-in comes from those two numbers that I stated initially, the 1.9 and the 2.1. Do we want to be blacks who are history, or do we want to be alive and well and not just surviving but thriving in this country? If we say yes to life for blacks, we have to have this conversation about abortion in America.
So what do you say to the person that says, and I had a conversation like this yesterday, well, it's good to save the lives, but what about the lives after they're born? You bring them into situations where they're not going to thrive. It's like, you know, so I don't know.
That's a great question, and I have some tough things to say to my white Christian brothers and sisters who want to make abortion illegal in America, but also don't want to do what needs to be done on the other side of life, to be able to come alongside these young women and give them sustaining resources to help them through those 9 months and then the 2 years following, and to be able to give them educational things, parenting classes and all these things, and to be able to grab a hold of the young men who, when they choose life, these young men need to learn how to improve their speaking skills.
And learn how to be fathers now,
How to
because
be
you have
fathers.
generations of fatherlessness.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They need to learn how to pass an interview. You know, these guys need help getting their criminal record expunged from the record if it's there.
Yeah.
And so these guys need life-giving resources on a real level. And if you are my white Christian brother and sister and you're not willing to have the conversation on both sides, then we don't have a whole lot to talk about.
Yeah.
Because there are things to do on a macro level to really bring life to our community.
Man, it's so good. Our guest has been Henry Flowers IV, Director of Protecting Black Life and Outreach of Life Issues Institute. Real quick, as we're coming to the end of this hour, how can people connect with you? If they have questions, want to follow up and follow what you do, how can they connect with you?
You can find me, henry.flowers at protectingblacklife.org. That's my email address.
Henry.flowers at protectingblacklife.org. Okay, we're going to take a break for American Family News and be right back.